I'm here with Desiree Pitman. She is a very talented energy healer. She calls herself the Shamanic Shapeshifter. And I was introduced to her many months ago. And came, as soon as I met her, I knew that I had to work with her. She has a very unique way of doing energy work, and it's been an absolute blessing just to be able to work with her. Welcome, Desiree. How are you?
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being here. So you call yourself the shamanic shapeshifter. Tell us why you chose that name because that's a very unique name, and I've never heard that used before.
Yeah, absolutely. The shamanic part is just basically I work with Gaia. I meditate every day out in the woods. I'm constantly working with plant medicine, working with, earth, all of that, and just bringing in that like shamanic journey type of energy. The shapeshifter gets a little bit more in depth. One, I feel energy with my body. So as it travels through my body will actually change shape. So when I'm raising energy, my arms go up. When I'm expanding energy, my arms go out. Other things, sometimes I'm like walking on a tightrope, all these sorts of things where my body just changes shape as I feel the energy. But in addition, I shift people's energy,
Mm.
right? When you remove those big blockages of energies to people, they feel lighter.
Yeah.
When you sort of put them on their path that they're really destined to be on, they just feel like their whole entire world is shifted. So it's shifting the energy of them. So it's using the earth elements to shift my energy and then shift their energy as well.
Wow, very cool. So when you're receiving this energy, you're feeling it, right? Do you also get images or like do you hear things in terms of like messages that need to be conveyed to that person as you work with them?
Oh, yeah. It's a whole collection of things. So, the first thing that I learned was actually being able to feel energy. So, I
Mm.
used to say my body is a pendulum. I used to literally go forward for yes and backwards for no. And I know it now is muscle testing.
Right.
Um, and then from there, it just evolved. But I realized that I was like, okay, how is my body moving? What does this position mean? What is, when my hands are sitting there in a weird position like this, like, okay, what does that mean? And
Mm.
I start asking those questions in my mind. I realized I started getting audio answers. I would get video, images as well. And then I just have an internal knowing, right? So all of it kind of comes together to give me the whole picture and understand what my guides are trying to convey to me.
Very nice. So would you say that the fact that you put so much time into meditation and being in nature, that's kind of tuned you to these subtle energies to where you could pick up on them more than, say, someone who hasn't done that?
Oh, definitely. That has definitely increased my ability to pick up those fine-tuned energies. It's kind of like if you live right next to a railroad track, you could become immune to the railroad and the sound of the train. However, if you go out in the country and you just kind of shut off everything and get as quiet as you possibly can and you kind of tune into yourself, then you know every little subtle difference that happens. And that's how I fine tune that.
Right. Yeah, it's like stillness. In that stillness, you find who you are in a
Hmm.
way. Very cool. So now the images that you might receive, a lot of them are symbolic, I'm assuming. So they come as like an image that represents an idea or a concept.
Hmm.
How do you work through that when you receive something as an image that maybe is metaphorical? How do you process that?
Of course, each situation is different,
Mm.
but it's kind of what happens leading up to that image. What am I feeling during that image?
Yeah,
And how does that apply to the situation right now? Right.
right.
So, for instance, this morning I was working with a client,
Mm.
a lot of energy in that the guilt, the shame, all of that, the kind of like putting so much work into something and feeling like you just kind of got let down at the end and, you're not really getting recognized for what happened. even though it was a lot of work put into it. And all of a sudden, I started seeing images of actually Jesus on the cross.
Mm,
And then I was feeling almost that wound where the nail went through his wrist.
right.
Um, and that being said, I was like, oh, you made some sacrifices in your life
Mm,
that literally you felt like you gave so much to it and you're not getting anything back and not being recognized for that. And so that's kind of how I did it in that point. The feelings I was feeling up leading to that image, noting the image and the symbolism within that image, and then applying it to the client's story.
wow, very cool. So, so this kind of energy work you do is very unique. A lot of people are familiar with like Reiki, which is more kind of like a physical body type of therapy that people like to do. How would you say what you do is different? Does it maybe work more on the spiritual level, the emotional level, or a little bit of everything?
Kind of a little bit of everything. Sometimes an easy way to describe it is Reiki on steroids in the sense where you bring in a little bit of that mediumship as well. You bring in some of that channeling, ascended masters, the healers, the archangels. You bring in some of that galactic energy as well.
Mm,
Uh, when you add all of that together and you put that into healing, you're able to really customize that healing for that person.
right.
So I don't do it. I'm just the channel, right?
Sure.
But that being said, as you know, my guides and my helpers come through, they really say, what does this person need at this time? And how can we best help them? So if they're bogged down by emotional stuff, I'll start crying during it. It'll just be like, all right, let's clear this out of here. But if that's not where in their life and that's not what they need, and they need more like, you need your gifts open, then we're
Mm,
going to be working a lot on that third eye. We're going to be working a lot on aligning those chakras and just lifting them up as high as we possibly can. So it really just depends on what that person needs. There's other times there's physical ailments that come up in
mm,
the sense of like if you have somebody who has a lot of what did I have the other day? Somebody who had just had knee surgery, right?
right.
Well, that's it. Recent injury. So I literally started working on her knee because that's what came up. So
Right.
it just depends on who's in front of me and what they need at that
At that
particular.
point in time. Right. Very cool. Yeah, I've seen you work on people, and it's very interesting to actually watch because, like you said, you literally move with that energy that comes in, and you kind of flow with it and help transmute that energy. And that's absolutely amazing. But what a lot of people don't know is that you could work on people remotely.
Yes. So it's actually very interesting. I get the gift of being able to feel energy on my own body,
Mm,
right? So, for instance, if somebody is having an ache in their shoulder, I feel that ache in my shoulder. So, when I'm working on somebody remotely, all I have to do is tap into their energy and I'll start feeling their ailments on my own body.
mm.
As they lift off my body and I'm clearing them, they'll be like, oh, that shoulder pain's gone. And I'm like, yeah,
That's
I don't feel
amazing.
any more any. This
Right.
morning, I was working with a client and they had a lot of acid reflux.
Mm,
Right. And as soon as that kicked in, they're like, oh, sorry about that. And I was like, don't worry. I feel it for 5 or 10 seconds. You've been feeling it for years. Like it doesn't really hurt.
right.
As I felt that clearing for myself and going back to that normal state of not having it, all of a sudden they're like, oh, like the pain's gone. Like I don't feel it. And I'm like, that's awesome. So
That
it's
is
pretty.
pretty awesome. So how does that work exactly? I mean, I understand that frequency and energy and vibration is everything, and we are essentially quantum beings, and we're connected to everything else in the universe. Um, and some people might have a hard time connecting with this idea, but it's a real thing, right? And how do you maybe explain it if someone were to ask you, how is it that you can work on me remotely?
Well, I think of telepathy,
Hmm,
right? How often do you think of a friend and you call them and they go, oh my goodness, I was thinking of calling you? How do you do that? Right? How do you transmute that energy across that time and space? And then if it happens so often, also on a regular basis, my friends will be like, how'd you know to call me? How'd you know something was going on? Why did you ask me those questions? And I'll be like, I don't know. I dreamed about you. I thought about you. something, your picture popped up on my memories on my phone. I don't know. Something in the universe said to say that, right? And send that energy out there. And so I think the same thing works with remote healing. We just send that energy out there, and then all of a sudden you'll witness it change, and things, people and their bodies change. One of the greatest examples I can give you is one day I was working on this lady,
Mm,
and I came across her, and I go, "Oh, you got some generational trauma going on." Like, meaning like stuff in her ancestry had literally impacted her family. I said, "Okay, we're going to clear that." And I start working on her.
mm,
And within a couple minutes, this guy comes around the corner, and he like peeks his head out, and I was like, he's like, "What's going on? What are you doing?" And I, at first I was like, "Oh, like I don't know what's going on." And
right.
then like, I can feel that.
Mm,
Turns out this guy was her brother.
wow.
Brother, who was in the other room, could actually feel us working on the left side of his body within his brain, right? The left side of your body is your feminine side of the body.
Mm,
So we were working on that part of his brain that was associated with his sister that helped clear the generational trauma for his whole family.
wow.
That's amazing.
That's really cool. Absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. So how long have you been doing this kind of work and how did you get started with it?
Well, I've had abilities ever since I was little. Both sides of my families have abilities. Cousins all the way up to, I have a great great grandfather on my dad's side that was literally called the Old Prophet.
Mm,
It's pretty cool.
yeah.
Uh, and of course, everybody has different abilities, right? Some people see energy, some people feel energy, see spirits, all sorts of different things, and you can always grow those abilities. Well, when you take both sides of the family, they have some pretty awesome abilities. And when you put those together, that's a pretty good mixing pot.
Right.
But of course, growing up, I didn't really know about those abilities. I remember, seeing fairies growing up. I remember always like feeling people's energy. I remember seeing different spirits, astral projecting, stuff like that. But throughout, like, drama and trauma in your childhood, it wasn't until my 30s that I actually had a really big spiritual awakening. And of course, it was the universe pushing me over and over and over. They're like, "Desiree, if you're not going into spiritual work, we're going to push you harder. We're going to push you hard. How about we push you even harder this time?" So, of course, when I just kind of went through some pretty traumatic stuff in my life,
Mm,
and found myself starting at everything I ever wanted my entire life, my entire dreams laid out in front of me, and all of that got taken away within about a month or two. And then I said, "That's it. I'm going to do anything and everything in my life that makes me happy." One of the first things I did is I heard about this girl who did chakra aligning. I thought Reiki was cool. Always wanted to try it. And the second that I walked in there, she goes, "You just lost a baby
mm,
and you just got out of an abusive relationship."
mm,
And I go, "Close. I'm leaving on Saturday, and all the rest is true." And when she was able to like help remove some of that emotional trauma, realign my chakras, I couldn't go back. Within probably within a week, I started feeling energy, and I
mm,
didn't know what it was. The very first time I felt energy knowingly, right? A friend of mine held out a singing bowl and said, "Have you ever seen one of these?" And I was like, "Nope." And they go, "You want to try it?" And I was like, "Sure." And they go to play it, and they're like, "Whoa." And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Usually it goes wah, wah, wah. But with you, it just went wah." And I was like, I didn't know what that meant. Like, okay, whatever. They're like, "You want to play it?" And I was like, "Sure." So I go to play it, nothing happens. Go to play it, nothing happens. Go to play it. Finally, like after the third time, I was like, "Dude, seriously." I was like, "How many times did it take you?" He's like, "4 or 5." I was like, "Deal. I can do this."
mm,
I go to play it that fourth time. And at the time, I couldn't tell you what it was, but something in me was like, push your energy into it. And I knew exactly what to do. And that second I pushed my energy into it, that thing started humming like crazy. And I was like, "This is awesome." And I was trained to be a scientist, right? What do? We ask questions, we have a lot of curiosity, and we repeat things over and over to make sure we have consistent results.
Right.
I was like, huh, what happens if you push harder?
Mm,
Well, I did. And when I did, it got louder. I was like, whoa. I
right.
was like, wait, what happens if I don't push as hard? So I lightened up, and then all of a sudden it got quieter. And I was like, oh, now this intrigued me, right?
Mm.
Well, I try this 3 and 4 times. I'm pushing harder, I'm pushing softer, it's getting louder, it's getting quieter, and my mind is blown. And I'm looking at my friend, I was like, I'm doing it. This is crazy. And
Wow.
that's the first time I ever really experienced energy. So
That's amazing. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned, the universe will push you, especially with someone like yourself who has such amazing gifts, right? I mean, you were given those gifts for a reason, and that reason is to use them to help other people. And the universe will make sure that you do some way or another. And a lot of times trauma is what kind of propels us into that, right? Because we're forced to move, we're forced to reassess and kind of, what am I doing wrong? What could I do? How could I do things better? Let me tap into my real God-given gifts, right? Because that's really what you're meant to do. But no, that's amazing. So you and I are actually founding members of the Ascension tribe, and we do weekly meditations. And tell us a little bit about that and why you decided to have this kind of offering where we can work with people weekly, right? And we can energetically help people reach their kind of potential and clear blockages and help them heal.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I started working with you. I'm gonna back up just a hair, but I started working with you. You approached me one time at an expo and asked if we could work together. And I was like, this guy's energy is pretty cool. We should try this out, see how this works, right?
Right.
And we ended up working together doing soul blessings in an EE room or an energy enhancement room, which is a room full of different frequencies that actually help heal the body and the mind and the soul in different ways. Absolutely amazing room. Highly recommend it. But after working with you, it was like, wow, I was impressed in the sense where, when you have the masculine and the feminine energy and it's brought in, you're allowed or you're able to do so much more with that. And the healings that we were able to do within that room were so prolific. It was like, wow, how do we bring this to more people? And so when we started discussing it, and I was talking to other friends and stuff, and I'm like, I really need to do an online meditation because I travel around the country. I meet all these wonderful people and I love them, but how do I keep engaged with them? How do I bring them more healing? And how do we spread it on a bigger level to more people?
Right.
Um, and so with talking to you, it was like, let's bring an online meditation. Let's bring this to the people. And you just ran with it, which was absolutely amazing. And then it was like, okay, how do we bring other healers that I've met that are just amazing across the US and bring them together? And I started looking at some of the healers that I work on a regular basis and asking them to join us as well. And there ended up being the four of us. You, Roque, Gina, and I. And we just all bring our different talents to the table. And I thought that was incredible to bring, even if you look down to it, our horoscopes are actually earth, wind, fire, and water.
Are
So
they
we
really? Wow.
yes, so
That's
when you
amazing.
actually we balance each other out very, very well. There's, two males, two females, so you have that masculine and feminine,
Yeah.
and all of that. So that's amazing. But we all bring our different skill sets, right? You're amazing at bringing the different frequencies, just not only with like the equipment that you have, but also with the tools you use and the energy that you bring in. You're very good at like backing me up in a lot of the things that I like. If I come across something, I was like, hey, I need a cord cut. You just cut it like that, like no questions asked, and it's beautiful. And then we have Roque, who works with alchemy wands, and that for me was one of the most transformative energies I've came across so far.
Mhm.
It really just opened up my abilities. One of the best stories I can tell you is when we first started working with these alchemy wands, they're just test tubes of water that are programmed with different frequencies. He would hand me one, and then I would see what I felt, right? In
Right.
one particular instance, I could feel energy as bolts of lightning coming out of my fingers.
Mm.
He hands me this wand. All of a sudden, the energy in between my fingers filled in, and I started being like, and it was like rocket boosters. So I was like, holy moly, that upgraded my hands. And he goes, look at the name on the wand, and it says Healing Hands Wizard. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. So it's like, how can we bring this to the public, right? And then Gina as well, she's amazing at like the sound healing. We do a lot of channeling classes together where she is just an amazing grounder, an amazing like just person to have with you, that kind of we just ebb and flow together very, very well. And so bringing the four of us together, we realized, wow, we work really well together. So how can we better bring this to the public? And also adding the soul blessings in there. Not
Yeah,
only clearing your energy with the alchemy wands, upgrading your abilities with the alchemy wands, we're getting to your specific blockages, your specific things that you need to improve with the soul blessings. We're adding all those frequencies that in the background are doing all this stuff. And then you have Gina who puts us through this nice meditation after we're all done and clearing and we get all upgraded. It's like perfect. Why would you not want to bring that to the public?
absolutely. Yeah, we really do have an amazing group of healers. And it's very, very powerful. When we do those sessions, I mean, I'm usually like on cloud nine just from working with everyone there. So tell me a little bit about like the difference between you working as a one person individual versus a collective, right? When we have a group of four talented healers all working together for the same purpose. How is that different from like working with one specific healer?
Yeah. So whenever you add more than one healer together, you actually magnify their energies.
Mm,
And so if you think about you add two, you don't just get like twice the amount of healing energy, you actually get like 10, 20 times as much. And when you add the other ones in there, it magnifies it even more. Because you have to think about it. You're not just working with that healer, you're working with their guides and their ancestral lineage as well.
right.
So adding all of that into the group. So you're thinking by the time the four of us come together, we're have tens of thousands upon thousands of different guides and healers and other people that we work with. Now, based on the healer themselves, their connections and their lineage can actually impact it as well. So I work a lot with light workers.
Mm,
I'm highly connected with light workers. So when I come in, I bring a lot of that light worker energy in as well. Other people, they work with angels. So they're bringing in a lot of that angel energy as well,
sure.
and so on and so forth. So you're just magnifying it as you work together. Also, you can kind of fine tune it better to that individual that you're working on. So, for instance, if there's not a tool in my tool set, I bet you one of the other four people have it,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so we can better share our tools and just do a better job that way.
Yeah, it seems like the healings come much easier when you have a group working together. It is magnified, it's exponential. So I often say one and one is not two, it's 11,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So you do something called a soul blessing. Can you give us more information of what that is exactly and because that's not something most people have heard of.
Yeah. So, a soul blessing is basically where I tap into somebody's heart chakra. Now,
Mm,
your heart's where you give and receive love to other people. So, I want to tap into that center where their love is located. A lot of times we have a lot of heart walls up and stuff like that, and we block ourselves off. So, it's actually a very vulnerable place to be as well.
mm,
But when I tap into that heart chakra, that allows me to connect with them. And I start by draining off any yuck energy, right? When I say that, I mean, when we clear that energy, it clears our channel,
mm,
right? It's like when our windshield is dirty, we can't really see what kind of message or where we're going and anything like that. So we're going to clear off as much as we can so we can see what's happening. From there, I raise their energy as high as I can possibly get it.
mm,
Now, if you think about it, the higher my energy is, the higher I can lift somebody. So that's one of the reasons I spend so much time outdoors
right.
is so that I can stay as elevated as I possibly can, so I can bring that person up as high as I possibly can.
Yeah, yeah, you could only give what you have, right? You can't give what you don't have.
Exactly. And then the third thing that happens is I get that intuitive message that I walk them through. And this is what I tell them. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, we're just along for the ride here. Um, but it's just a series of different body movements, channeling the energy, different visuals, different auditory messages. Sometimes the ascended masters will speak directly through me. Sometimes I'll just hear them talk. Sometimes I'll get visuals. Sometimes I'll be called to do weird things. You know, I remember one time I was opening up somebody's third eye and they're like, literally hit somebody in the head. I said, "You want me to hit this person in the head?" Like, I had to ask permission. Like, is it okay if I just, just
Right.
like, I went home to my kids that night. I was like, guess what I gotta do?
Funny.
But that being said, it's just whatever I'm called to do. Uh, so it can be anywhere from balancing chakras,
Mm.
unblocking chakras, aligning chakras. We can be working in masculine and feminine energy, raising it, balancing it, clearing it. A lot of times there's ancestral work. We can go back 7, 8, 9, 15 generations where we're clearing different things. Sometimes we're talking to ancestors,
Mm.
deceased loved ones. I may channel those as well. Channeling guides a lot, especially ones that I'm familiar with, such as, Jesus or the archangels, some of the galactic beings as well. Uh, yeah, and then downloading spiritual gifts, that's probably one of the funnest, right? Because right there in front of me, I can literally see people start to feel energy where they didn't really feel energy before. You can teach them kind of how to start seeing energy, those types of things. During my classes, a lot of times you'll see the growth of an individual just over that half an hour. They'll be able to see things, hear things, sense things they hadn't before. But as far as the soul blessing goes, it's really catered to whatever that individual needs in front of me. I've had families of, 3, 4, 5 people come through like my booth at an expo before, and every single one of those people will be vastly different.
Right.
Even though they interact on a regular basis, they're closely knit, they're all from the same family, they can be vastly different. And it's so amazing to see where you may be clearing off somebody's deep, dark shadow work over here, but you're downloading spiritual gifts over here. And then you're working on family lineage over here. And you're like, okay, that's what we're doing today.
Right. Yeah, we're so unique, right? Everyone's got their own little thing, right? So what is the most like unique or coolest experience you've had doing this work?
Ooh, that's a hard question because I think it's amazing every day. Um, Incredibly miraculous. Uh, some of the most unique is some of the videos I post on Facebook and TikTok that literally show energy moving through light. There's one video where I open up my field like this,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden I go to raise the energy, and you see the light just get brighter and brighter and brighter as I'm raising energy. That's amazing to catch that on camera and watch that, like, blows my mind. But I do have to say, probably one of the most miraculous for me is one day I'm just driving down the road,
Mm.
and all of a sudden I channeled 3 ascended masters in a row.
Mm.
It was Archangel Michael, Jesus, and the White Buffalo Woman.
Mm.
And that was just one after another. I have video of it, but it's basically not only did my demeanor change,
Mm.
right? Because Archangel Michael is very rigid, right? He's very strong. But then Jesus is more like, yes, my child.
Yeah.
And then the White Buffalo Woman is like, your language is not so familiar to me. It was just funny to see like my voice changed, my demeanor changed, and you have that through the 3 different individuals that were all collectively working together saying, you know what, we're going to bring a little bit more peace and love on earth. And that message to me was hugely impactful. And it coming from all those ascended masters, it just, wow, wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is definitely a wow.
And we had one the other day.
We did.
You
Maybe
want to talk
talk, well, I'll let you talk about it because I know you had such a profound effect with it, right? I mean,
Yeah. So it started out, you can share your
yes.
spiritual gifts with people. And that's what we decided to do as a group is we were just sharing our gifts with everyone. And then afterwards, we always check in. How does it feel? And I was like, you know what? There's something blocking me. I don't know what it is. Something's blocking. And we went to clear it.
Mm.
Second, we went to clear it. It felt like this cord was unplugged from my back, almost like you were unplugging your, you know, extension cord from the wall. And the second that pulled out, all of a sudden it was like I was deprogrammed. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was. Everything was 100% blank. And it was like I got reset back to ground zero.
Mm,
And all of a sudden in my mind, I have to be like, do I have a name? And then they go, your name's Desiree. I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, that's right. My name's Desiree. Right. And then
right.
I was like, what year is it? And even it being 2024, they go 2025. And I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, that's right. It's 2025. Right.
Mm,
And then you guys are all on the line or on the Zoom call, and they're like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. I just don't really know who I am. Then all of a sudden, just it's like I knew just enough about myself.
mm,
And I was so deprogrammed, I couldn't even tell you if I was male or female. So I didn't have that identity,
yeah.
right? It was just Desiree in 2025. And all
Mm,
of a sudden, I zoomed and there was this ginormous ball of energy in front of us.
mm,
And I was like, we're standing in front of Source.
mm.
And the Source goes, ask me anything. And I was like, I don't know what to ask.
Yeah,
So where I
that was
said, like, what do we even ask? I don't know. And then you guys started telling me different questions to ask, and it was just very, very prolific. And then all of a sudden, it was like, okay, you're done. And it's like I zapped back in my body. And then another friend of ours, Gina, was on the call, and she shook just as much as I shook back into the body. And it was like,
yeah. That was
yeah,
really, really powerful. Yeah. So it was almost like an ego death for you in that moment, where the ego just dropped.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, because I didn't identify with being male or female. I didn't identify with any of that. So,
Yeah, no, that was really, really cool. Wow. I mean, that was one of the most powerful experiences I've experienced, and I found that when I work with you, actually, a lot of times I have very profound experiences. But again, that's because I'm hanging out with you, and you have this energy about you. But so tell us about where people can find you, how they can learn more about the Ascension Tribe, when they can join, how they can join, where they can find more about what you do personally. You do have a website. We'll actually put both the website for your website in the description of the video and the Ascension Tribe website as well.
yeah, perfect. You can just find me on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, as well as my website as well, DesireePitman.com. All the information for the Ascension Tribe, our weekly meditation is on there, as well as our Ascension Tribe website. If you would like to try it out, we'd be happy to give you, a free, one-time use if you want to try it out. So,
Very nice. Well, Desiree, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for taking the time to hang out with me and just kind of talk a little bit.
yeah, thank you so much and many blessings.